and welcome to Eat Well with Parkinson's. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Paula.
We're going to be your hosts today. We are thrilled to be back. This is our second season of Eat Well with Parkinson's here at LTV Studios. In season 1, for those of you who have been following us for a while, you know that we provided a lot of very important, interesting nutritional information as it relates to living with Parkinson's disease. In season 2, we're going to change it up a little bit. So we will be referencing back to a lot of that same important nutritional information, and you can always use the QR code that's at the beginning of our episode and at the end to access recordings and nutritional fact sheets if you're interested. But in addition to that, we really want to help you build up your recipe card file. So we're going to be providing and teaching and talking about a range of different recipes. We're going to slow it down a little bit so that we can show you some of Paula's amazing kitchen tips, how to prepare different recipes, and also talk more about the ingredients that go into the food so that we can really focus on cutting back on those hyper-processed foods and incorporate more whole foods into our diet. Before we get started, I do just want to address, I get questions every month, why Eat Well with Parkinson's as opposed to a different focus? And there are a couple of different reasons. One is that Parkinson's disease is the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease worldwide. They say that the rates of Parkinson's disease have doubled in the past 20 years, and they're going to double again in the next 20 years. In addition to that, unfortunately, there's no cure. But with that said, there's a lot of hope with Parkinson's disease. There are new medications coming out. And in addition to that, a lot of research that supports healthy lifestyle choices as a way to delay disability of the disease and improve our quality of life. And that can range from healthy sleep patterns and habits, exercising regularly, and of course, eating well and eating healthy. Yeah. So on that note, Paula, what are we making today?
So today we're going to make a pumpkin blueberry muffin. And it's really interesting because I don't know, sometimes people think it's not pumpkin season right now, but maybe just the whole concept of trying to get those colorful fruits and vegetables in is why we try and, sprinkle them throughout your day, every day. That's the goal.
So I don't know if you know this about me, but I love to bake.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. I thought your daughters might like to bake with you, so that's a good thing.
I've been teaching them. My mom was a baker, and so I baked with her in the kitchen from a very young age, and I love it. Usually sweet treats, and I find it very difficult to make my baked goods healthy.
Well,
so
that's good. You're in the right place.
Yeah, teach me, Paula.
So that's really interesting that you bring that up, because when we look at trying to address brain health, gut health, we're trying to reduce inflammation. And we're also trying to look at our ingredients and give you the power to say, hey, this is something that might be a better choice. So today we're going to talk about just getting rid of that white flour, white sugar idea, because those are very inflammatory, they're very highly processed, and they don't give us any fiber. And one of the things we want to really focus on for Parkinson's disease is getting a good regular bowel habits, and part of that is infusing fiber into every meal that you have.
One of the hardest things I find is finding healthier alternatives to white sugar or refined sugars. Are there certain sugars that are healthier than others?
Well, usually we focus on local honey and pure maple syrup, and using dates or pureed dates in some of the dishes. I looked at coconut sugar, I looked at other kinds of sugars, and part of the problem is that we still, if we didn't have it in the recipe, we might still try and go back to our white sugar. So we want, and every time I did a recipe like a cup to cup ratio, it was like, wow, this still tastes really sweet. Doesn't need to taste as sweet.
Right, because then you don't enjoy the flavors of the blueberries and the pumpkin.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing too. Is so we cut the sugar down really a lot in this recipe. So we're actually using 1/3 of a maple syrup instead of 2/3 cup of sugar in this recipe. So when we cut that down, I really think the blueberries became the star of the show. There's a hint of pumpkin, but the blueberries really are nice and they're moist and they're flavorful.
And the great thing too about this recipe, I would imagine, is that you can really make it year round because you can probably substitute the frozen blueberries for the fresh blueberries if they're not in season.
Yes, and that's what we say too. You want stuff in season for peak nutrition and peak flavor. Something coming from California or Florida is not as fresh and is nutrient dense because as things travel, they kind of lose a little bit of their nutrition.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a traveling problem.
So it's one of the reasons why we talk about eating local when it's possible.
Yes, you're providing all the answers today. And I like the frozen blueberries, so I made this recipe both with frozen and both with fresh and frozen, and I like them both the same.
Okay.
And the other thing too is if you're looking to do a little bit of extra baking, we're going to talk about how to kind of have this as a staple in your house so you can kind of do things, get prepared for that.
So the other thing I just want to mention before we get into the recipe, in season 1, we primarily made savory, mostly main course dishes, I think. And so this is also, I love this recipe, and I love that we're starting season 2 with this recipe because it makes a really great healthy snack or breakfast option if you're looking for something to eat that's, like you said, still full of fiber and gives you some of the fruits and vegetables we're trying to increase in our diet.
And this is a little lower than protein if you're monitoring your medications and you need a little bit less protein at breakfast. This is a great choice for that as well. Okay.
Should we get started? And I wonder, since we have, we're going slow here, maybe you can walk us through some of the ingredients before we start making the recipe.
So this is the classic way to make muffins is you add the dry ingredients in one bowl and you mix them into the wet ingredients. So the dry ingredients we're using today, instead of the white flour, we're taking almond flour.
I don't know, maybe we can zoom
or
in.
Almond meal.
See this? This is the almond flour here.
Yeah, maybe we can just zoom in on this. Okay.
We get an overhead shot.
Yes,
there we
great.
go. Thank you.
Okay, so we're using almond flour. That gives us a little bit more bulk. It's a little more fibrous. And we're also using oat flour. So this looks like whole wheat flour, but it's actually oat flour. So what I did is I took the time to put the oats in a food processor and pureed them up until they're like a fine powder. So you
just
can
dry.
see it's
you
very
just put
dry.
the whole oats in.
Yes. And if you like this recipe, this might be one of the tricks that you do in advance, is you keep a container of oat flour already ground up so you can use it easier. And the other thing you can do is if you really like this recipe like I do, you can get a glass mason jar and mix all the dry ingredients together.
Oh.
And then all you would have to do is Sunday morning when you wanted to have muffins, you wake up and you just take that container and it's all measured and you just add the wet.
I love that. So I do have a few questions about the oat flour because I've never seen this before. Can you substitute whole oats with quick oats to make the oat flour at home?
You can definitely use any oats, but I like to shy away from the quick oats because they're so highly processed and broken down. It kind of raises our blood sugar too quickly, and it doesn't really give a good source of fiber because it's broken down.
So there's a benefit of using the whole oats then?
Yeah, for brain health, we're trying to slow everything down and get rid of those rapid shifts in blood sugar. So that would be why the more fiber you put in, the less sugar you put in, is just really, really helpful for your brain. And that's what we're all about.
I love that. A couple more questions.
Okay.
If you don't have a Cuisinart or a blend, like a
blender,
could you use a regular blender? That's my question.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't find the word, but if you don't have, you could.
You could use a blender to blend it up, or you probably could use a immersion blender, but that might go all over the place. So maybe not.
So you're just doing a dry, and if you don't have access to this at home, do they sell the oat flour?
Yes, you can get it in the section of the specialty flours.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The other magic ingredient is a soluble fiber. It's called flaxseed. So this is ground flax meal. This gives us that little bit of gumminess, that little bit of soluble fiber that helps soften the bowel movements.
Okay.
So this is a great addition. It also binds the muffin together. So that's why we're using that.
Okay.
We have some baking powder. And we have some cinnamon, for a little extra pumpkin-y flavor. So it's really a classic pumpkin muffin, and I'm sure you're going to love it.
I can't wait. Should we get started?
Yes. So we're going to mix the dry ingredients. Our recipes are set up so we make half to demo and half to show you. So when you get the recipe on the website, it's gonna be the full recipes, but it looks a little smaller when we're looking at it here.
Okay,
Okay, Sarah, so if you can mix the oat flour, it's already measured.
great.
It's actually 1 cup. Once you go through the process of blending it, you measure it after.
Okay, so I want one cup of oat flour.
And we want 1 cup of almond flour.
Okay, and I'm mixing those together.
Okay.
Love it.
And you're gonna see that this changes the density a little bit of a muffin, but not really that much because we have a little bit of baking powder in it as well.
I'm gonna go ahead and put in the cinnamon. How
Cinnamon.
much cinnamon do we put in? Is it
So
1
the recipe
teaspoon?
has 1 teaspoon cinnamon,
Uh-huh,
and it has 2 tablespoons of ground flax,
okay, I'll go ahead and put those in.
and it has 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Okay.
I have to say, I wish I had someone measuring everything out for me at home.
That's actually called mise en place, and when you go to cooking school and learn
Yeah.
how to make recipes, they tell you to do that.
Oh,
So
really?
you don't burn your onions, basically. So you have everything
or
prepped.
garlic, I've done
Yeah.
that before.
So you have everything prepped, and that's a great little job for your assistant cook. So sometimes I feel like when we are serving a patient or we're serving our loved one and they're the caregiver, it's nice to involve them in the recipe and the
Yeah,
cooking.
and it makes
So
it social.
even just the prep, get somebody to prep with you, talk about it, make it more of a social event, and then
Yeah.
you get reap the rewards when you bake something. So
I love that.
okay, so
All right,
that's
got the dry ingredients done.
okay. So now we're gonna put the wet ingredients together, and then we'll marry the
Okay.
2 of them.
Does it matter what order I put the wet ingredients together, or we're just mixing them all up? Should I do the egg first and lightly?
Yeah, you could do the egg
Okay.
first. Let me grab you a fork.
Okay.
Lightly heat it. Okay. So this is great because that egg has that binding ability too. So we really didn't change eggs in the recipe. We really just chose to change the flours up and the sugar up.
And just a reminder that if they're making this at home, there's actually 2 eggs in the
Yes,
recipe,
2
but
eggs in the
we're having the recipe right now.
And there's actually 1 cup of canned pumpkin. Okay, so this is a 1/2 cup. So, okay. And the canned pumpkin you can find year-round in the baking section. I don't think I would recommend using a raw pumpkin and cooking it because it'll
a
be
lot of
too
work.
watery and it's a lot of work.
Okay.
Okay. And now the rest of the ingredients is we're using some extra virgin olive oil, which is also great for anti-inflammation and brain health. So I like using recipes with olive oil. You don't really taste that bitterness of the olive oil, which is the high potency of antioxidants. And that's what you want in olive oil. You want the high potency antioxidants to really kind of pull things together. And then we're using some maple syrup. So the recipe is 1/3 cup maple syrup. And I want you to get the pure maple syrup. I don't want you to use the maple syrup that is made with high fructose corn syrup and brown coloring, because that's not the point.
Okay.
And then there's some vanilla for flavor.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a simple recipe. Some of these things are going to be year-round in your pantry, so that's good. So if you mix the wet ingredients, when it's all mixed together, then we'll throw in the dry.
Okay.
And then I'm just going to chop some nuts. So nuts is actually optional in this recipe. The reason why I like
switch
the
me
nuts,
places?
yeah.
Okay.
The reason why I like the nuts is if you look at what walnuts look like, they actually look like a brain. And that's why,
Oh, brain health.
yes, for brain health. It's very interesting. There's certain foods that really support the body part that they look like, and brain is one of them with the walnuts. So we're just going to put a little bit walnuts inside the recipe, and then we're going to put a little outside. So why don't you combine the 2?
Okay.
And
So
then
I'm adding the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients?
Yes. And then when that's all combined, then we would move towards putting the blueberries and the walnuts in.
Okay.
Okay.
And are you a blueberry folder? When I make blueberry muffins at home, I fold them in very carefully
Yes.
so they don't get squished.
Yes, and that's the thing. The good thing you mentioned that, because if you use the blueberries that are frozen, we like to coat them.
Okay.
So you take about a tablespoon of flour, and you coat those with flour before you put them in. So one of the things that happens is the flour around the blueberries sometimes helps protect the blueberries from bleeding in to the recipe and causing a mess. So you still have an orange and a blue recipe. And the other thing, it also prevents a little bit from them dropping to the bottom of the muffin tin.
That's a great tip. Now if someone has nut allergies, obviously they could leave the walnuts out and are they able to substitute the almond flour for anything? Could you use extra oat flour perhaps?
Yeah, you could probably do this recipe with oat flour and
Yeah.
whole wheat flour.
And whole wheat flour.
As well.
Okay.
And you could probably also, if you don't like the walnuts, you could use sunflower seeds, you can use pumpkin seeds.
Okay.
And like you said, if there's someone has a nut allergy, you want to stay away from the almond meal.
Yeah.
So you can substitute that as
Okay.
well. Okay.
Here's the batter.
Okay, so let's put these in first. Okay. And then what we're gonna do, I really want to talk about adding the blueberries and then we'll put them in the
Okay.
thing.
I don't know if you brought this up already in this episode, but in season 1, we talked a lot about trying to get 5 fruits and vegetables every day into our diet, which comes to about, on average, 30, right?
A week.
Weekly.
Yes.
A week, yeah.
Okay.
And if you look at this recipe, blueberries, pumpkin, does the cinnamon count? No.
The cinnamon does count, I guess, because
It
it's
has
a bark,
enough
it's a
benefits.
plant, yes. Okay. So yes, that's a really good point. We really didn't talk about why we chose blueberries and pumpkin, and that's something that we have a few minutes that we can talk about. Is I like to try and get those colorful things right off the bat into the diet, into the breakfast. And the reason why it's so important is I feel like sometimes patients have apathy. When they have Parkinson's disease, when they have apathy, they need to be excited by what's coming for breakfast. Sometimes even just the smell of something cooking in the oven, like a muffin cooking in the oven when you
Stimulate
wake
your
up,
appetite.
would really be nice. So I like the pumpkin because of that, and the blueberries, so they're very colorful.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is we want you to have that 5 colorful servings of vegetables a day and fruit. So this kind of fits on both avenues. And the reason why that's so important is that fruits and vegetables are so highly loaded with antioxidants, phytochemicals, polyphenols, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. So when we look at these type of additions, as opposed to a store-bought blueberry muffin that is loaded with sugar, and flour, this is giving us a healthy dose of the orange, antioxidants and phytochemicals. It's also giving us beta carotene and vitamin A, which is great for our immunity. And it's really kind of pushing us into that right direction. And it's tasty, so you can get somebody that's not, that doesn't really want to eat anything but toast in the morning to say, hey, let's try this healthy muffin.
Yeah. I love it.
And then when we look at blueberries, the great thing about blueberries, did you know that everybody that talks about brain health says put blueberries in your oatmeal in the morning?
Why is that?
Because blueberries are very high in anthocyanins, and anthocyanins are great for brain and brain health.
I love it.
So that's why that comes up. And then the whole concept of, it's getting a little warmer. I don't know if people are going to really want to eat hot oatmeal for breakfast, but this is a way to get in some hot oatmeal in the form of the muffin.
Can you make these in advance and store them?
Yes, you can store those in the refrigerator.
In the fridge?
Just because they don't have any preservatives in them. So if you
Okay.
leave them on the counter, you're going to have a complication.
Okay.
So let's add the blueberries into the mix. And then what we're going to do, so when we look at this recipe, here it is. The other really nice thing about this recipe, aside of the fact that we're just adding all these colorful fruits and vegetables, is we also are giving a really good dose of gut health for this recipe. We talked a lot about gut health last year in our pursuit of wellness for Parkinson's disease. When we talk about putting a recipe together like this, we're talking about how can we support our gut, because we know the gut and the brain is connected by that vagus nerve, and when it's connected, that means everything that you do in the gut, whatever you eat, is going to have an effect on your brain. So we want to make sure the brain health is thought of when we have our meals. So this is really simple. We're going to take the muffin tins that are set up with the paper for a little bit ease, and we're just going to take 1/3 of a cup for each muffin.
Okay.
Okay.
And while you do that, I am going to let everyone know that April is Parkinson's Awareness Month. It is an opportunity to raise awareness about the disease, to perhaps participate in an event that raises funds for research, and also truly to celebrate our incredible Parkinson's community, because there is an incredible Parkinson's community out here on the East End. April 11th is World Parkinson's Day, and on that day around the world, people wear blue, they light blue candles, they put blue lights on their homes and their buildings as a way to honor the Parkinson's community and raise awareness. So just mentioning that and encouraging and inviting all of you to join us on April 11th in Sparking the Night.
That sounds exciting. I didn't realize there was that many events going on, but it's really,
There's a lot.
it really seems really important to get the message out there.
Yeah.
Especially because you said the rates are so high and they're climbing. And, you know, when we think of brain and brain health, we, you know, we do a lot of information. Everybody is so geared in on Alzheimer's, and we are saying Alzheimer's is it's important. I'm not saying it's not important, but
Right.
they're kind of overlooking the whole idea of Parkinson's disease, and that kind of gets me concerned.
Well, I think there is more awareness now, and people are talking about it, which is good, and there's a lot of research happening. Like I said, I think it's a very hopeful time. And these look delicious, Paula.
Okay, so one of the things that I forgot to do is you can put the muffins, you can save a few blueberries, or like a half a cup for the top. This is something that has a blueberry bite throughout, so you're really going to get the taste of the blueberries coming out. And but we can decorate it. We'll decorate them with a little bit of these nuts if you want to do that.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. What temperature do we use to bake them?
Okay, so we're putting them in the oven for 350, and we're going to put them in for 42 to 45 minutes, and you need to check them with a toothpick, not a Q-tip, excuse me. So you said you like to bake. Is this something you think your daughters would like or your family would make?
I would love them. I think my daughters would too. They are huge blueberry eaters. And yeah, I can't wait to try it.
Okay.
Should we pop them in the
Yeah,
oven?
pop them in the oven. It's interesting. So what I said when we were talking about making some of these recipes, that we really try them out 4 and 5 times, and we switched up we cut the sugar down, we switched it up, we made some changes, and every time they just tasted a little better. And I have my husband at home is my guinea pig, and he doesn't have a choice, but he definitely tries some of these things.
So we're lucky that we have some prepared muffins here that were made this morning. If we can put the camera on them, we'll show everybody what they look like when they come out of the oven. So they're gorgeous. You can see the blueberries on the top and the walnuts. Should we try one, Paula?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna cut it in half and then we can share it.
Okay. I'm anxious to see if you like it, Sarah.
Me too, I'm excited. Oops.
Okay.
My gloves got stuck to it. You got it?
Yeah. Okay.
right.
What do you think?
Delicious.
Yeah.
Very moist. You can taste the blueberries, taste the pumpkin, very subtle. Not too sweet. Really delicious. Paula.
Yeah, and these were
Thank
something that they we made them yesterday, and we're eating them today. So this is definitely something that you can make in advance. I wanted to just go over those cooking tips a little bit one more time, because part of the process of changing up recipes and making things healthy is doing things that you can do ahead to try and make it a little bit easier.
Okay.
Because I'm concerned that you might say, oh my gosh, I don't want to grind up the flour. I want to just use white flour. And my concern about that is anything that's inflammatory to the body is inflammatory to the brain. So we're trying to get people away from so much white flour.
And I just want to say quickly, I know we don't have a lot of time, but you bring up a really important point. It's not just making good choices about what we put in our body. It's making good choices about what we don't choose to eat.
Yes.
And what we don't put in our body.
Just as much. And I feel like we have these comments that people tell us all the time that they want something sweet. They want sweet. They want sweet. And when you take and you make natural sweet items,
Mhm.
I feel like that's the best way to kind of get the sweet going. So when we take out the 2/3 a cup sugar and we push in 1/3 cup of maple syrup, we're making that conscious decision that, hey, I don't need everything cloyingly sweet
Right.
for my children, for my husband, for my family.
Yeah.
And for someone with Parkinson's disease, I don't need that sweetness, especially in the morning. Sometimes when we have sweet in the morning, it kind of makes us want to have sweet
You crave it.
throughout the day.
Yeah.
So I think that's really helpful to try and cut that down.
Yeah.
So
Well, these are delicious.
I'm glad you like them because I was concerned that we were going to kind of come to the thing that's like, oh no, these aren't sweet. I don't really like them. But that's the whole point. The beauty of a recipe that has the fresh blueberries, and even you're using a whole pint of blueberries, 2 cups in this, is you're giving that moisture and you're giving that taste with by the extra blueberries. So.
Well, thank you so much, Paula. Thank you for joining us. Eat Well with Parkinson's. Join us in 2 months. We'll be back with a different recipe. You can always find our nutritional fact sheets and previous episodes on our website by scanning the QR code. And let us know if you have any questions.
And do you remember our slogan?
I don't. It's been a while.
So eating
Eating
well, tastes great.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.